Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I'm working with new products for a card, so get comfy and let's get crafty. I am using the Honeybee Stamps Lakeside Builder die set and the At the Lake stencil set for the first time. I just got these. I haven't even opened them yet. So we are going to play with them together. And by together, I mean you're going to watch me do things that maybe could be done differently. This stencil set is a set of 6 that coordinate with the die. So I've taken a half a sheet of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I've ran it through my die cut machine with the die. And thus far, only thing it has cut is the mountain range and the little holes in the water for the canoe. So these stencils are each cut so that you can ink blend different parts of the scene. Each stencil is layered and has a frame around it so that you know where to place it on your die cut or just in general around your paper if you're not going to use the die. I am going to tape this in place with some low-tack tape. And because that top mountain range has been die cut, I can just slide the stencil right along that mountain area. And it kind of clicks into place a little bit. So I know that all the things are where they're supposed to be. I'm going to be using Concord and 9th inks today because they're new and juicy. And the first thing I'm going to do is ink blend the sky through the first stencil. This is sped up. I promise I don't ink blend this fast. So I'm just adding some blue to the sky through the openings in the stencil. Super easy. And then I'm going to transition to the first layer of greenery down below. I've got an evergreen color ink and a green blending brush, and I am tapping off on the side there to make sure it is a color that I want to use. Sorry for the squeaky chair. It just kind of is what it is at this point. I probably should get a new one. On to stencil number 2. Stencil number 2 is the first layer of the mountains. So again, I'm just following the die cut and lining it up. And then I will go ahead and tape it down. And I'm using the same 2 little pieces of tape the entire time. They don't get too wet from the ink because this tape is, it's a Spellbinders tape. And it does kind of have a little bit of a plastic coating on the back. So the ink just kind of, whatever, no biggie. It doesn't bleed onto the rest of my project is what I'm going at. I'm going to use a light purple. I can't remember the ink color, but you really could do this any way you want. Now, having just driven from Virginia to Idaho and back, I am remembering that in the distance, the mountains look a little purplish. And then as you get closer, they get greener and browner, depending on where you are. This second stencil also has another layer of the greenery. So once I get this green cube open, I will be ink blending the next layer of trees or brush. I think it's the brush down. Oh no, this is the lake. This is the water. And I'm using like sea foam or something like that. And it's a little bit off screen. I zoomed in just a little bit too high. I do have a piece of scratch paper underneath what I'm working on, just in case I go up the edge. I didn't want to end up with ink not where I wanted it. So on this third stencil, I'm making a point to line up the seam or that etching on the stencil with the seam that the die created when I ran it through my die cut machine. So that's just another way of making sure things are lined up. In addition to that, line kind of clicking in place because the mountain ridge has been die cut. Sorry, words are hard today. I keep forgetting what I'm trying to say. So we are going to go on to the next layer of mountains and we're going to introduce some blue because like I said, they start off far away purple, they move into that bluer tone, then they move into the greener tone. And as you get super close, sometimes they're brown, depending on the time of year and the area you are in. This stencil also has a couple of the tree trunks, which I noticed after I had already colored them blue, but whatever, I made them brown. The next stencil is more of the layers of trees. So we're going to go ahead and line that up and tape it down and pull in another color of green. Now you could use the same green on all your layers of trees, but in using different colors of green, I was able to add some dimension. And you'll see in some close-ups at the end of the video, it almost looks like it's embossed, like you can almost see that dimension coming through. I did just take a microfiber rag and wipe my ink brush off there because I have one brush for all my greens. I don't have one for every single color I own because that would be ludicrous because I have many different brands and colors of ink. Okay, this next stencil, and I think we're on stencil number 5. I lost track. And again, it's another layer of trees. And you can see my fingers. I'm feeling for where in the paper the opening is. You can actually, it's like very tactile. You can feel where this stencil needs to be open at. It's really quite ingenious of Honeybee to do it that way. They are clear and see-through, so it's a little bit hard for you to kind of see where that stencil is on camera. But in real life, it's very helpful in lining things up. So here we're working on some trees again. Again, this is the 3rd color of green ink. And then we're going to move into that must have been the 4th stencil, and this is the 5th or 5th and 6th. I don't know, y'all. I lost track. I was too busy explaining how I came about my color combinations to pay attention to which stencil was supposed to go, or that we were working on next. So whatever. For using this for the first time, there's a couple of things I have noticed. First of all, super easy to line up. Each stencil is etched with the layer that it is. And because I have the coordinating die, that farthest back mountain range helps line the stencils up really well. The one thing that maybe I could have done a little bit better was to line them up, especially the last couple of tree ones. There's a little bit of white. And there's a slit in the water for the canoe. Another thing I should have done was, well, I put the card base on before I put the canoe in, and that's a little problematic. So I'm just going to pull out my trimmer here and go right up. I'm going to take the inked edge right up to my finger guide there, so that I can cut right along the edge. I'm going to go all the way around all 4 sides. And when I get to all 4 sides, that sky scene is actually going to come apart, which I was not expecting that. So you could use it or not. I decided to think about that, and I'm going to die cut the canoe and the oar out of some white cardstock and bring in a brown ink and zip through. Wow, words are hard. Okay, I'm going to zip through ink blending that canoe and the oar. I could have pulled some brown cardstock out of my scrap stash, but I had this little piece of white already on my desk, so we just went with it. I did color the oar a lighter color of brown, and I'm using one of those pieces of tape to, the sticky side is on my finger, so I can hold it without getting fingerprints. So I have created a cardstock out of a very light blue piece of paper to determine whether or not I liked having the sky on the card. And I decided I did. I can slide it down to fit this card size and not worry about any of the cutouts being visible or not lining up properly. So I decided to go ahead and use the sky blended background. However, I kind of like frames around my cards. So I'm going to pull my trimmer in, and I'm going to trim. This card panel is currently 5.5 by 4.25 inches. When you add the sky piece in, I am going to trim down the sides of the trees and the mountains and the lake to be 5.25 inches wide. Same with the sky piece. And then when I figure out how much I need to trim off the bottom, I will do that in a minute. But basically my scene is going to be 5.25 inches by 4¼ or 4 inches tall rather. So I have a little bit of that light blue, that sky blue border all the way around my card. I kind of prefer 9 times out of 10 to have a border on my card. I feel like that gives it a finished edge, and I feel like that gives your eye a start and a stop place. Now, sometimes the border just doesn't work with the card, but most of the time I go for the border. So I have trimmed down the sky piece as well, and I put some double-sided adhesive with my ATG on the back, and I'm just lining that up so the border is the same on the top and both sides. Now here is where I had to figure out how far I want to trim that bottom down, or the bottom of the scene down, and I'm going to take it off so that the tallest tree is at the 4-inch line. Now I have flipped my paper over so that the trees and the other parts don't get caught on the trimmer. That's just caution on my side. So once I have it all trimmed, that bottom all trimmed off, I'm going to add some glue to glue this down. And here is where I made probably the second error in creating this card. I should have put the canoe and the oar in before I glued this down, because it was a little bit hard to get them lined up into those slits that were cut by the die, even though I didn't put glue anywhere around them. Like, I felt like I had left myself a good margin, but, well, especially because I used liquid glue, and liquid glue, I mean, once it starts sticking, there's no coming back from that. So I put glue on the back of my canoe, and I held it with my reverse clamp tweezers, and then I ended up having to use my tweezers to pick the slit up to get the canoe in. And then, I mean, you're watching here, it was all a process. It's a learning curve. Now my fingers have glue all over the back of them because I just rubbed them all over the back of the canoe. And so in the future, if I intend to put the canoe into the scene, I will be doing it before I adhere the scene onto my card base. Because, yeah, just because. I'm going to put a little tiny dot of glue under that oar, and all is right in the world. I am not going to put a sentiment on this card at this point because I'm not sure what I will use it for. I mean, let's be honest, it's probably going to be a birthday card because, hello. But I do have another wedding this summer. I have, going back to school, lots of things I could use cards for. So zooming in just a little bit, I want you to see the texture that was created, but also maybe how I didn't line it up quite right. But it almost looks like it's embossed. Like, it is so cool. Super awesome stencil and die set. I hope you enjoyed watching me use that for the first time out of the package. I have a couple other videos here I think you might like as well. I've also added that subscribe button, so click it and subscribe so that you can see my other videos. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and have a great day.